morning, everyone, and welcome to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio above the iconic trading floor. Well, we are officially less than a week away from the presidential election. Early voting is already underway, and traders are positioning themselves in the markets. While major stock indexes remain near record highs as economic data and mega cap technology earnings steal the spotlight this week. In fact, U.S. GDP data this morning showing that overall growth actually edged a bit lower in the third quarter, coming in at 2.8%, below economists' expectations, and a deceleration from the 3% growth that we saw in the second quarter. Of course, that report follows Google's parent company, Alphabet, releasing its earnings last night, reporting better than expected results, and the stock price reacting accordingly this morning. Well, consumers are confident. We saw that in the report earlier for GDP. They are still spending. And as economic data show that the U.S. has been generally on a solid footing, the Federal Reserve's rate cut path is in question on Wall Street. So with that, let's take a look at what is on tap in today's show. Well, first up, Americans feel 11% more confident this month. It's according to Conference Board data yesterday. It's the biggest monthly acceleration since early 2021, and a wealth advisor will join me soon with more on what it means for you and your money. And as the NYSE and its partners look to create more transparent and efficient markets, the CEO of financial technology platform Drive Wealth is going to join us from Money 2020. My colleague Trinity Chavez is on the ground in Las Vegas. Plus, critically acclaimed Broadway musical Water for Elephants, as you see behind me here, is in the house to celebrate the opening bell. Members of the cast will join me on the floor, as well as its composer, as this show gets ready for its national tour. Well, as we await the market open and digest the latest data before the bell, I do want to bring in Eddie Gabor. He's managing partner at Key Advisor Groups. Eddie, it's good to see you this morning. We're looking at a bit of a mixed open for stocks after that GDP report. What does it tell us about the health of the economy?
So I think the economy continues to prove to be extremely resilient, and it's on solid footing. You know, growth absolutely is slowing, but we are not even close to a recession right now. And the bond market is sending some mixed signals as well, too, right? So we're getting cross currents economically. ADP was strong. GDP was weaker than expected. The bond market is showing an acceleration of growth and inflation being priced in. And it's going to put the Fed in a really tough spot where I don't think they're going to be able to justify cutting rates as we get to December and next year. I do think they'll cut rates next week, but the bottom line is we're not in a recession, and for them to cut rates in a non-recessionary environment, the bond market is signaling that could present some big problems next year, because if inflation accelerates too much because of growth, because of them being very loose with their monetary policy, it could cause them to be forced to have to raise rates next year. And that's the last thing anyone wants to see, especially the stock market.
I think that would be a surprise, at least for stock investors at this current moment, Eddie. Based on that GDP report that we saw earlier, just about a half hour ago, what does that signal to you about inflation, specifically that PCE indicator?
So look, I think inflation right now, when you see the consumer is continuing to be extremely resilient, the number obviously has decelerated, but the bottom line is prices aren't coming down. It just means the rate of change of inflation is slowing. And my concern is if we continue to have loose monetary policy with the Fed cutting more rates, that could cause these numbers to actually start to increase, meaning the rate of change of inflation, instead of going down, which is what we want to see, could start going up. And when you take a look at where we are with energy prices being volatile, when you're looking at certain commodities starting to show some acceleration as well, too, they're in a really tough spot because they're trying to stabilize the labor market, but they also have a price stability mandate. And I think they're going to have to force themselves to look at that price stability mandate a little bit closer in their monetary policy as we look forward over the next 12 months.
We get that jobs report on Friday as well, Eddie, and even though we've seen certainly the jobs data come in solid over these past several months, pointing to a decent labor market, some guests on my show have noted that we could see it skewed on Friday because of recent strikes, including at Boeing, as well as extreme weather, like some of those hurricanes that we saw down south. What are you expecting in that all-important jobs report Friday?
So I think the jobs report is going to be a tougher one to read because of those things that you just talked about. But I think the thing we need to understand is those are one-off events. So those jobs will come back on. But the bottom line is those folks that are on strike are still getting paid. So the way the government looks at it is they're still on the labor market numbers. So the labor market should continue to show resilience and show strength. Which again is another data-dependent point that the Fed is going to look at in regards to determining how aggressive they cut rates or if they continue to cut rates. So I think the job market is going to continue to prove that from a data perspective, a recession is not on the horizon here in the near term. And doesn't justify cutting rates.
October has been such a pivotal month, certainly these past several years. We saw the market bottom in October of 2022. We are 2 years now, a little more than 2 years technically, into this bull market. If the Fed does slow its pace of rate cuts as previously forecast, Eddie, but growth does hang on, what would be your projection for equity prices?
I think equities will do very good in that environment. When you look at bonds, everyone's worried about the 10-year bond accelerating. You have to understand as to why it's accelerating. If you know the why, it can kind of give you a good idea from a market standpoint. I believe the why is because it's pricing in growth accelerating and inflation accelerating. And that's really good for risk assets. So I think their monetary policy, even if they said they're not going to cut rates, you'll get an initial reaction of downward, of course, in the market. That'll be a reaction function to that statement. But the reality is, if the fundamentals are strong, it should still be really good from a market standpoint. So we think the market will be extremely resilient and continue to be strong over the coming months.
Let's talk about Alphabet really getting things started for these mega cap technology companies reporting earnings this week. It reported better than expected results last night, really fueled by the cloud. Do you think that these large tech companies out there can continue to lead the market?
I do, and one could make an argument that they are considered more defensive plays anymore. You've seen the NASDAQ and especially the mega cap tech names show a lot of resilience in the volatility that we've seen. Because the fact of the matter is, those are the most highly owned assets. Those are large companies. And I don't think you can have the market go higher without them leading the charge. So I expect this earnings this week overall to be strong. And continue to support the fact that mega cap tech is going to continue to be one of the areas that investors are going to want to be in. And until anything proves otherwise from a growth perspective, I think they're going to continue to lead the way.
What do you want to hear in the earnings reports and subsequent earnings calls from executives when it comes to these tech companies this week?
The biggest thing we want to look at is CapEx spending. We want to see what that's going to look like, as well as future guidance. You can only say AI so much before that's going to start to wear out. I think what you're going to want to see is how they're able to monetize AI. We know a lot of these companies are investing a lot into artificial intelligence, but now we want to know how they're able to actually monetize that. So that's going to be a big thing. We're going to want to look at that tonight when we see Meta's earnings after the bell, and see if they're able to monetize that and to add revenue. But that's going to be the biggest thing, is future guidance, because that to me is going to hold more weight than what's happened in the past.
Well, the election less than a week away. Eddie, we'll see how the balance of power shakes out in our nation's capital. In this crucial week, what are you advising clients? Do they stay the course, or are you recommending that they update their portfolios?
So we've actually positioned our portfolios, because of the run we've had, to be a little bit more defensive by staying overweight mega cap tech, but we actually increased cash over the last couple of weeks. We just think it's prudent to play a little bit of defense going into such a big event like next week. My biggest concern from an election perspective is not actually knowing who the winner is on Wednesday morning. Because I think that will create a lot of uncertainty from the market, and you could see some of these trades unwind from a short-term perspective. But we would look at that as a buying opportunity. So we're looking at the month of November to be actually volatile, with probably some more downside than upside over the first few weeks. And that's going to be the month where we want to get fully invested with the cash unless something changes fundamentally. So that's how we're playing it. So we're overweight mega cap, but we have a cash position higher than what we've had going into such a big event.
Eddie Gabor, managing partner at Key Advisors Group. Eddie, I hope you'll join again after the election in November. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, stay with me because up next we will head west to Las Vegas, where Drive Wealth's CEO is going to join our Trinity Chavez live.
Now, obviously, your focus is your 300 PF chains that you have around the world. But talk to me more about this new pagoda concept.
The type of service and food that we serve, which is made from scratch, high quality ingredients, great hospitality, great ambience, that can be used in more use cases, more need states, more occasions, to more people more frequently. So the light bulb moment, if there's one, is, wait a second, we can do a great job for you on a lunch during the week. And, and it can be very fast, it can be very affordable, it can be very, very abundant, and of course, delicious. We just have to adapt the way we do things, steps of service, abundance, price points, to be able to serve you this way.
Now, while you're remaining so agile with this ever-changing landscape in the food and beverage sector, how do you sustain your authenticity?
The brand has to know, what they stand for, right? In our case, every day is a celebration. We want to elevate every occasion and make it special to people, right? So if it's a day-to-day lunch, we created a concept here in the US that we call Express Lunch in our bistros, which is lunch in 20 minutes or lunch is on us. It's the same ingredients, same kitchen, same steps of service, just an individual bowl because that's the occasion there. So understand who the brand is, what the brand stands for, and what the consumer, the customer, in our case, the guests, the way they want to live their lives, and adapt ourselves to serve you this way. I believe that's where we found a lot of success, and we continue to do that moving forward.
How do you think your new pagoda concept will impact the broader food and beverage sector?
We believe we can play in a segment which is fast casual, where it's more a customizable, super fast, abundant experience that's very affordable, that we can put people through the line.
Welcome back to NYSC TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Schuller here in studio at the New York Stock Exchange. Well, as Money 2020 continues in Las Vegas, it's bringing together the sharpest minds shaping the future of financial technology. One company, Drive Wealth, is leaning into the event with news on the way. It too has a presence here at the NYSC. For more, I want to bring in my colleague Trinity Chavez, who is on the ground in Las Vegas. Trinity, good morning.
Good morning, Kristen. That's right. So I am joined right now with Michael Blaugren. He is the CEO of Drive Wealth. And for our viewers who might not know, this is a fintech company that provides a digital platform allowing businesses to offer fractional U.S. stock trading to customers around the world. And they've been making headlines with some impressive new offerings. Good morning, Michael.
Hi, Trinity. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. I do want to talk about the new EMS integrations that you recently announced. Talk to me about this new move and these partnerships and with these major companies that you're working with.
Oh, thank you. So as you said, Drive Wealth is a global fintech platform that provides brokerage as a service. And generally, that means that we have APIs that allow our roughly 100 business partners around the world to offer U.S. securities trading to their, in aggregate, tens of millions of end retail customers. So usually people access our platform through cloud-based APIs, but we also offer more traditional connectivity through financial institutions using the FIX protocol. And so we've recently announced we've integrated with virtually every major FIX network around the world, including Bloomberg and Autex, and TNS, and Pico. And that allows major financial institutions that want to leverage the power of Drive Wealth's fractional share trading or 24-hour trading or any of our other services to onboard onto our platform in a matter of days versus the APIs, which might take weeks.
But I do want to talk more specifically about the institutional broker-dealers using this new platform. How will it directly impact them?
Well, we've had a number of brokers already on board using the FIX protocol, which allows them to get started very, very quickly. So someone who wants to kind of augment their existing offering with 24-hour trading or fractional shares can do that, very reasonably effortlessly, and they don't have to move all of their business at once. They can get started relatively swiftly.
Amazing. And then, so what was the incentive behind this new decision to move forward with this news?
Well, DriveWealth has been growing, very rapidly over the past several years, and in particular over the past several quarters. And so it's really part of our general strategy to focus on global leaders in the bank and broker-dealer sector, and then also to augment that with digital leaders, including neobanks and digital wallets.
And I do want to talk to you about how, I'm sure you're well aware of the news that the NYSE recently announced that it's expanding its trading hours for the ARCA trading platform that we have at the NYSE to 22 hours a day. And, this is something that Lynn Martin, the president of NYSE, was talking about in the fireside chat that she had on Sunday to kick off things for Money 2020. But you also are moving toward making trading more easy and accessible also for your users. So how does DriveWealth's 24-hour trading offering really align with the growing demand for being able to manage risks at all hours of the day?
Well, I think it's excellent that NYSE is moving in this direction, and we're certainly supportive of seeing, major market infrastructure that supports 24-hour trading, because I think both retail consumer expectations are evolving. A whole generation that grew up with crypto trading expects to be able to trade in notional size and 24 hours a day. But now institutions also expect to have the ability to hedge their risks and to take exposures, really at any time. Starting with 22/5 for NYSE seems like a sensible approach. We currently support 24/5, but I think that's the direction of travel, and it's great to see that more people are getting aboard.
What's next for DriveWealth?
DriveWealth is really focused on kind of covering the waterfront with respect to our product offering. We have U.S. equities, ETFs, options, mutual funds. We're adding fixed income, launching that with a major partner over the next several weeks.
You don't want to tell us who that is?
There'll probably be opportunities to announce that soon.
Okay.
And then moving forward, we were recently licensed in Europe, and so I think you'll see us augment our U.S. securities offering with more international instruments as well, and have the ability to both serve our global partners with not only the U.S. securities market, but with their local securities.
Amazing. Well, a lot to look out for, and I hope you come back on the show to share that key new partnership that you're going to be announcing very shortly.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Michael, it's always a pleasure. Now, Kristen, I just want to talk to you more about what we can expect later on today. This is just, one of the many conversations around topics like these, and this is only the beginning of what we're going to see in yet another action-packed day, the final day here at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, where we're going to be talking more about some of the big trends in fintech that are being explored, like expanding global access and regulatory growth. Topics that we just hit on with Michael are just a few more examples of the kind of innovation that's all happening here at Money 2020.
Trinity, of course, will be joining us throughout this show with more from Money 2020, including our other friends down here at the Stock Exchange, FinTech TV, which I know has a presence there as well. So we look forward to that. But as this conference does look to wrap up today, what are some of the key takeaways that you're hoping to bring back to New York?
So again, like all of the innovation that we've been talking about around the cryptocurrency sector, Bitcoin, the regulatory environment, how the election is really going to impact the overall outcome of the whole business sector. But today is going to be really focused on PR, marketing, credibility challenges with new fintech like generative AI, and CMOs and marketers will emphasize the measurable impact of the whole role that's really owned by the media, influencers, and the community, building alongside how creatively how to be creative and performance are really shaping the overall landscape of the future of fintech. Kristen.
Trinity Chavez, live for us in Las Vegas. Trinity, thank you so much. As I mentioned earlier, we will be checking back in with Trinity a little bit later in the show after the market opens. All right, well, stay with us, because up next, I am going to head down to the trading floors. We talk about the investing landscape with a venture capital firm and one of its portfolio companies as we await that opening bell. But first, the NYSE does encourage you to vote this election. Here's how your voice matters.
Together, we achieve greatness.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
One small step for man, one giant leap I'm Isabelle McCalla with Fixed Income in Focus. Today, I'm pleased to have with me Carol Schleif, Chief Investment Officer at BMO Family Office. So, Carol, providing wealth management services to high net worth clients demands diversity across instruments. How are you and your clients using fixed income products, especially in this higher for longer rates environment?
We've always used a variety of fixed income products in the public and the private markets, from separately managed accounts managed internally or managed with outside managers that we use. We use mutual funds, ETFs. We can do private cap or private structured credit, and as well as a variety of structured notes. So we use it a lot, and one of the advantages we have to the current higher rate environment is that it allows us, if clients need money coming in the near term, it allows them to be able to sit in cash, which is something we haven't been able to do for a very long time. So there's a variety of ways to play it, especially with higher yields across most of the instruments we're using.
Absolutely. So speaking of a high rates environment, we've seen substantial market commentary during the rise of interest rates and inflation that challenges the traditional 60-40 equity to fixed income allocation. So in your role, how do you determine the appropriate allocation strategy, and have you seen any shifts in recent years?
Well, the interesting thing is that there was a lot of calls for the death of the 60-40 portfolio back in 2022 when both stocks and bonds were down so much. But it always starts with the individual client and what they're looking to do. And it also it can be different even within different generations of the family. Anything they're going to need in the next couple of years should not be in very long-term investments, should be shorter term. And as we were talking about, you have an ability to get paid to do that, which you haven't had for 10 to 15 years. So it's very bespoke per client, but we never.
Good morning and welcome back to NYSC TV Live, everyone. You're taking a live look at the trading floor. I'm Kristen Scholler as we await this opening trade, and I'm honored to be joined by my next two guests as we talk about the investing landscape heading in to the opening bell. I'm joined here by March Capital partner Solomon Hailu and Overjet, a portfolio company of March Capital's head of talent, Besik Mikhailishvili. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. It's great to have you. Solomon, we'll start with you. You're closest to me. Tech earnings are so in focus this week for these mega cap companies that trade on the public exchanges. As a VC, what are you interested in the technology space right now?
So we've seen hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in AI infrastructure. What we're excited about is seeing how that evolves into the application layer. At March Capital, we invest in companies that are driving the innovation economy. So these applications will be in cybersecurity, cloud and data infrastructure, and overall AI applications.
I want to bring you in as well, Besik. I'm sure your company, Overjet, we want to learn a little bit more about it and how it is tapping into some of these technologies to really change the game.
Absolutely. So Overjet's the global leader in dental AI. And we pioneered the space. What we've done is we've woven intelligence into this really powerful AI-powered platform that dentists and dental insurers love because it helps them provide better, more precise, more consistent, and faster care for patients. So yeah, very exciting.
Solomon, I want to turn back to you. So much of what we cover here, in addition this week, of course, to technology results, is the Federal Reserve, right? The overall health of the U.S. economy, the global economy, and at least here in the U.S., of course, what it means for interest rates. How is this market environment shaping the investments that you are able to make?
So our investments are 10-year horizon, so we're thinking about broader technology shifts. And when we think about AI, Besik brought up Overjet, we're going from a period of system of records to systems of intelligence. So simply storing data is not enough. It's taking that data and automating some task. So we think broadly this will be very beneficial to bringing productivity to GDP growth over the next 5 to 10 years.
Besik, you have a unique role. You're the head of talent, and so I'm sure these technologies can help the talent that you have on board, the talent pipeline as well. Talk to me more about that.
Absolutely. Well, we actually use AI on the recruiting team. So we use a suite of very powerful AI tools for recruiting. And what Overjet does is we focus on bringing in some of the best computer scientists in the world but then also really talented dentists. And earlier I talked about weaving in intelligence into these powerful tools that we're building. The people who are actually doing the weaving are a combination of engineers and dentists, and they work hand in hand at Overjet.
Solomon, what is the exit that you're looking for your investments, like Overjet, for instance? Are you looking to take these companies public? Are you looking for a buyout? What's on the radar?
When we look to invest in businesses, we're looking for companies that have platform potential and that can be standalone public companies. So when making an investment, that is the vision that we're driving towards.
And I want to stick with you because obviously the U.S. market is its own unique operation here, but international is a focus as well. How much do international companies make up your portfolio?
So a lot of our companies are based here in the U.S., but their clients are global. So I would say, we also do a lot of investments in India. We're the largest investor, or an investor in the largest payment platform, BillDesk, and a few others. But our center of gravity is here in the U.S., but these applications have global reach.
Besic, is there a way to quantify just how much more efficient and productive AI is making operations at your company, Overjet?
Absolutely. So, we're increasing case acceptance. So patients who are able to see what their doctor is seeing when the doctor is making recommendations on what their treatment plan should be are more likely to say, like, yes, I understand why you're recommending what you're recommending. And so AI is a very powerful visual communication tool. In addition to that, we're also helping back office operations, the way that companies operate and administer, by making those operations much more efficient. And so what we're doing is, in addition to providing much better patient care, which is like what we're ultimately most focused on, we're actually reducing costs as well, and by a massive amount that differs for dental insurers versus dental practices.
Solomon, artificial intelligence obviously is a very popular and competitive space. And so for your portfolio companies, like an Overjet, for instance, how are you looking at the competition out there and making sure that there is a moat around these businesses?
One, I think it's quality of customers and quality of business model. We're looking for very strong cases of ROI. I think what we see in the AI field is there's a lot of exciting technology, but businesses haven't been formed as much around those. So with Overjet, companies like MetLife rely on them to accelerate a lot of their claims automation. Something that is a team of 200-300 people can get automated away by 90%. So that's what we're looking for in terms of what is the clear ROI that this AI business provides to its end customer. And that does a lot in terms of cutting out the noise in the investment landscape.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. We are just awaiting the opening trade. We appreciate it. Solomon and Besic, wonderful to have you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. All right, well, as I mentioned, we are just minutes away from the opening bell. You see some of the trading action down here behind me on the floor of the stock exchange, but I'm excited because soon we will be able to turn our attention to the opening bell as the Broadway musical, critically acclaimed Water for Elephants, is going to be on that opening bell podium celebrating the open as we look to get started with technology companies very much in focus. And on top of that, data as well. So more on this play, this musical, I should say. It's based on the 2006 best-selling novel by the same name. And Sony Pictures released the film version of this particular story in 2011, you might remember, starring Reese Witherspoon at the time, Robert Pattinson, and Hal Holbrook. Well, in 2023, Water for Elephants was presented at the Alliance Theater in Atlanta before making its way here to New York City on Broadway earlier this year. Now, the historical romance follows the lives of 20th century circus performers and staff, taking us behind the scenes into a world of tangled relationships and personal tragedies. Reviews for this musical have been positive, with the New York Times critic Jesse Green calling it a, quote, stunning, emotional production with movement, eye candy, and awe, end quote. Now, the large cast includes not only actors, but acrobats and puppeteers, and it was nominated for 7 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. So as we get ready for that opening bell, I'm going to be joined by cast members and the composer on the other side. Stay with us as we get set to open up the U.S. equity markets. All right, we are officially off to the races. U.S. stocks opening mixed on the back of those technology earnings, as well as U.S. GDP data earlier this morning. Stay with us because we will have cast members from that opening bell podium on the other side.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of The Exchange, brought to you by the New York Stock Exchange. I am live on the floor with my friend Stephen Lee, founding partner and portfolio manager at Logan Capital. Stephen, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having us.
So I want to talk about your ETF. It's LCLG, easy to remember. It's the Logan Capital Broad Innovative Growth ETF. Tell us a little bit about the strategy behind this ETF.
Yeah, it's a strategy my team and I have been running since the 1990s. So we've been through a lot of different markets together, and we really focus on doing three things. We spend a lot of time looking at the economy. What are the trends? We expanding, contracting. Whose customers have a higher propensity to buy? We do a lot of quantitative work based on earnings leadership, which has allowed us to find names before everyone's talking about them. And we do technical analysis, which gives us the perspective to be long-term investors and capture gains over the long term.
So I want to talk a little bit about the FANG stocks, the Magnificent Seven. Like, we've got these different combinations that are out there, right? When you look at those, how have they affected your portfolio construction, the way you think about risk management?
You know, they've been a great source of opportunity for us because, as I mentioned earlier, we tend to find names a little earlier than our peers, and we have some very good disciplines about risk management and position sizing. So very often we'll find that those stocks have been, as they appreciate and become big parts of the benchmark, we can sell into that strength and then use our earnings leadership work to find the next generation names. So often when the FANG stocks get to be a big part of the benchmark, our risk reduction has us taking profits and planting seeds for the future.
So let's talk about current investments, recent investments. You know, are there certain names in the portfolio? You know, where has performance been coming from for your ETF?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. Obviously, we've had some of those big tech names that everyone knows. As I mentioned, they've gotten to be big parts of the portfolio. So then we've trimmed those, bought next generation leaders. So companies like an Arista Networks. In the consumer, we've been a little more constructive on the consumer than some.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler down here on the trading floor just after Water for Elephants. The critically acclaimed Broadway musical celebrated the opening bell, and I'll be talking to cast members soon. But as Money 2020 continues in Las Vegas, out west, it is covering innovative topics like open banking, generative AI, and cryptocurrency. My colleague, Trinity Chavez, joins me again, this time with another special guest. Trinity, what is the latest on the ground from Vegas?
That's right, Kristen. So I am joined with Remy Blair. She is with FinTech TV, and she has been on the ground with me every single day here at Money 2020, waking up bright and early to cover for her show, as she has been reporting on all things Money 2020 while we've been out here in Vegas. But, you know, I do want to talk to you, Remy, about what your expectation was being an anchor for FinTech TV. This is your space. You're constantly covering this area of focus. So what was your expectation going into this conference?
Well, Trinity, as you mentioned, we've been here bright and early every morning, and usually when we go to these conferences, there's this underlying sentiment of us versus them in terms of the big players versus the smaller players in the ecosystem. And I would say that we've been seeing so much progress when it comes to fintech. So it's not just the familiar household names such as the JP Morgans or Meta or Visa or PayPal that we've been hearing from, just because of the advent of fintech evolving, and we're hearing about use cases not just for the bigger players but also for smaller players out there. So I think this evolution that we've been seeing in fintech, it's been really exciting to cover. And as you mentioned, we've been hearing from different types of stakeholders, including policymakers. We had Gary Gensler speak here remotely, and I think that really speaks to the fact that we do need guardrails when we're talking about technologies such as AI, but also in terms of what it means for utility.
No, absolutely. And you bring up a good point when it comes from, you have some of the biggest and brightest names and most notable names in the finance space here, but also what it's doing for the startup community. So, and that was one of the focal points of the conversations I was having with the startups about what do you think events like Money 2020 is doing for startups, right? And so what's been your takeaway through the people that you have been speaking to?
Well, Trinity, Trinity, as you mentioned, I've been speaking to the bigger organizations, and when we're talking about earnings season, we're hearing from the big names, including those Mag 7 names, and they have had a presence here, including Meta as well as PayPal. And of course, when we think about AI, we think about NVIDIA, and I spoke to some of the people at NVIDIA for FinTech, as well as just having conversations. But when you talk about startups, they are the ones that are at the forefront when it comes to innovation. So it is very telling that when you have all the players in the FinTech ecosystem working together, that we're seeing progress that is coming out for the everyday consumer.
And so what's next through your coverage? What can we expect throughout the day for FinTech TV, and where can viewers tune in?
Sure. So viewers can go to fintech.tv to see all of our interviews as well as coverage. But we also broadcast every day from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and that is broadcast on Reach TV, which is at airport gates throughout the country.
And what are you going to be covering for the rest of the day? I mean, we are wrapping up. This is the last day of Money 2020, but we are going to see how they, their next event is going to be in the Asian markets as well as the European markets. And so are you going to be tracking that at all?
Yes, I will definitely be following that. And we are here at a very uncertain time, but we're seeing the macro environment change in the U.S. And when it comes to regulation, I think one thing that we're hearing about is the spike in crypto prices yet again. And we're hearing about the utility of crypto as well as stablecoin and how that is affecting fintech. So that'll be something that I'll be watching very closely, Trinity.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, thank you so much again, Remy. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And I'm sure I'll catch up with you later on today when I join your show.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Trinity.
Great. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to send things back over to my colleague, Kristen Scholler, on the trading floor at the New York Stock Exchange.
Trinity, unfortunately, I don't have your audio, but it was good to hear parts of that interview between you and Remy Blair, of course, FinTech TV, live there for us in Las Vegas. Trinity, we'll check with you a little bit later, but stay with us because up next, Isabelle McCalla, Broadway's Water for Elephants cast member, is going to join me right here on the trading floor.
Now, Matt, talk about the specialty services broadly and how Evernorth serves the specialty market.
Absolutely. Evernorth is a leader in the specialty space. A little bit of context. Specialty drugs are those that are used to treat patients with complex conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, MS, or even cancer. Very often these are infused or injectable medications. They'll typically have strict storage and handling requirements. We have some drugs in specialty that need to be infused into a patient 24/7. Even a lapse in treatment of just a few minutes can lead to serious medical consequences. The medications can also be quite costly. There are some specialty drugs that can cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars per patient. And we expect demand for these specialty drugs to increase significantly over the next several years, and that's fueled by a wave of complex drug innovation. I'll give you one data point on that. Last year, over 70% of the drugs that were approved by the FDA were specialty drugs. Now, in the specialty space, we have several different ways at Evernorth that we serve the market. We have our leading specialty pharmacy, Accredo, where we treat over 1 million patients with over 7 million specialty prescriptions annually. We have our specialty distributor, CuraScript, where we serve over 12,000 healthcare providers. And then we have a collaboration with a company called CarePath RX that serves over 700 hospitals, health systems, and providers and provides specialty pharmacy and infusion services on their behalf.
Now, Matt, we know that specialty drugs are expensive for both the healthcare system and for patients. What is Evernorth doing to increase access and affordability to these life-saving medications?
There's a lot that we do, and one example that I would highlight is our focus on the adoption of
Welcome back to NYSC TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler down here on the trading floor, and this is the moment of the hour. We just saw Broadway musical, critically acclaimed show, Water for Elephants, celebrate the opening bell, and I am joined now by a key cast member as well as the composer of the score. Wonderful to have you both, Isabelle McCalla, of course, in the show, and Alex Fahlberg. Thank you both for joining. Isabelle, we'll start with you. Talk to me more about your character in this musical.
So I play this character named Marlena. She is an equestrian, and she has a gift for healing animals. And she is married to the ringmaster, who is quite temperamental. And through no fault of her own, finds herself falling for this man, Jacob Jankowski, who is the man who ran away and came and joined the circus as a vet. And they bond over their shared love of animals. And it's a spectacular love story.
Alex, I want to hear from you as well. What went into developing the music for this particular show?
Oh, can you repeat that question for me one more time?
What went into developing the music for this particular show?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think it's important to say I'm 1/7 of a collective, an ensemble called Pigpen Theater Company. And the 7 of us have been working on this project for a while now. And we just fell in love with the story, with the adventure. We were really, really lucky to work with some really incredible collaborators along the way. It's a really rich story filled with a real love and kind of a sacredness about theater and performance.
Isabelle, the show has a few more months left here on Broadway for tourists coming into the city for the holidays, others who want to get out and see it. Why would you tell them that they should go see this musical?
I think Water for Elephants provides the ultimate viewing experience. It is a beautiful story. It's spectacular acrobatics. There's a soaring score with glorious music done by beautiful singers and actors and dancers. And it's very touching and moving. I think it's a story about human resilience and what do you do when you lose everything? Who do you become? Who do you become the villain? Do you become a caretaker? Do you rely on community? And I think every person can see themselves in the characters on stage.
Alex, how did Pigpen bring elements of this story to life through the music?
Oh, gosh, sure. So one of the opening scenes, there's a character, Jacob Jankowski, who is running toward a new life, running to find anything, anywhere, and he hops onto a train. And so one of the first challenges was how do we bring this roaring train to life musically, and the feeling and the exhilaration of hopping onto this moving train. And so that was a really exciting process, musically trying to figure out what are the appropriate sounds, how is it supposed to feel emotionally. That was really exciting.
The national tour will kick off in 2025. Isabelle, can our viewers expect to see you on that?
Oh, I don't know, but you will see someone absolutely fantastic in that part. That's too early to say yet. Yeah.
I'm curious, too, for people who have seen the film, right? Reese Witherspoon was the star in the film. Many of our viewers know her at home, other members as well, Robert Pattinson. How would you say the musical is different from the film?
I think, first of all, we have music. Which is a huge element. We also have puppets that are representative of animals, which I think is gorgeously represents the fragmented memories that our narrator, Mr. Jankowski, has. I think it's a really beautiful mixing of mediums with our puppetry, circus, dancing, singing. It's told in vignettes and montages more so than an start to finish narrative, and it's because it's live, you're experiencing the thrills right in front of you, and so that's something you can't get when you're watching a film. So highly recommend coming to see it live.
Is it grueling to do a show on Broadway almost every day?
Yes and no. It's hard work, but it's the best kind of hard work. I wouldn't do anything else.
Okay, how do you just stay in shape for it? Both your voice, obviously, the dancing, all of the elements that go into this.
Sleep, lots of sleep, eating properly, and when I can, working out. Yeah.
Alex, for our viewers who want to be able to listen to the score, of course, outside of just the Broadway show, how can they do that?
Well, our music's available on Spotify. You can go on Spotify right now and listen to the cast album. It's extraordinary. It's so rich and filled with some incredible voices, beautiful voices that bring the score to life. Is that what you were asking? Okay, great.
I know our viewers will be watching. Hopefully they can get to the show on Broadway. Isabelle, see you, of course, in action here in New York City. If not, of course, they'll have the national tour next year. Alex, I hope they can listen to the music as well. It's truly a pleasure to have both of you here with me at the Stock Exchange. Thank you. All right, of course, we were just hearing from Water for Elephants, the critically acclaimed Broadway musical, down here on the floor of the Stock Exchange after they celebrated the opening bell. And stay with us, because up next, we will head back to Las Vegas, where my colleague Trinity Chavez is going to join live and tell us what is on tap as Money 2020 enters its final day.
You know, if I go back to 2021, it was really the first time in the company's history that we actually had an investor day where we showcased our first essentially 3-year strategy for the group. And it was very clear, very focused strategy. It was really about diversification, about the fact that we wanted to increase the franchise value of our reinsurance business, but we also wanted to get scale and expand on the insurance franchise. Once you have that roadmap and that vision and you have excellent people, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I look at where we are now, 5 years later, basically. The company has more than doubled in size. Our stock has gone up over 60% over that period of time, better than the S&P. Our book value per share, which is a critical measure in insurance, is also up over 60%. And we have improved pretty much every facet of the company, from underwriting discipline to operating discipline. But one of the most important things we have done is we have created a culture of inclusion and collaboration. That's frankly what allows us to accomplish what I just discussed. One of the great things about insurance is that we have jobs for everybody, regardless of where you come from. But no, I did not think that insurance was going to be where I ended up. Mm-hmm. You know, I had gone to the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies for my master's. I have a master's in international economics. I speak 3 languages, and I had a lot of experience in Latin America. So I thought there's got to be a multinational company out there that could use somebody with my talents. But I didn't know what industry, and I didn't care what industry at the time, to be perfectly honest. So I had applied to different companies. And the way I ended up in insurance is my older brother, who had worked for McKinsey & Company for a long time, had said, listen, AIG likes people with your background.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler, down here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and we are just about 15 minutes into the start of trade. With that, I do want to bring in my colleague, Trinity Chavez, on the ground at Money 2020 in Las Vegas. Trinity, I know still a very early hour there out west, but what is in store here in the future for Money 2020?
Yes, Kristen, it is very early here, but you know, we have an awesome team here on the ground getting up bright and early every single day to put on this show. And you know, like I said, it does not stop here. Following this event in Las Vegas, Money 2020 has several initiatives and expansions on the horizon. So the next major event will be the Money 2020 in Asia. That's kicking off in April 2025 in Bangkok. And as you can imagine, this is an event that takes several months to put on. So even though we are still about 6 months out, the speakers have already been locked in. The event will feature over 250 speakers, including 57% C-suite speakers and over 20 innovative startups. And this event will explore how integration, virtualization, and eastward expansion are driving change. Then shortly after that, in June next year, the Money 2020 team will kick off their Europe conference, and that will take place in Amsterdam. And then once again, this will be casting a spotlight in fintech, payments, and banking innovations across Europe, offering a comprehensive view into the region's unique financial landscape and regulatory shifts. Kristen?
It's so interesting, Trinity, to talk about financial technology and the trends that we really see across the board. What has led Money 2020 to select these particular locations for these events? How are they at the forefront of fintech?
Yeah, so each region has a very strong fintech ecosystem and offer different perspectives of fintech trends, and they each offer different unique positions within these broader shifts. So for example, Asia may drive innovation in digital banking and super apps, right? When Europe might be driving in privacy and data protection, and the US, of course, in financial infrastructure and cybersecurity. So fintech companies attending these events across multiple regions can see ease to the path of international expansion. They can gain knowledge about new consumer demands. They can, get more knowledge also on local compliance needs and the competitive landscape in every single market. And that's really the purpose of Money 2020, to foster a richer, more interconnected global fintech community, helping both startups and established companies to expand innovative brand and collaboration on a global scale. And I also talked about this in greater greater detail with Tracy Davis. She is the president of Money 2020, as well as Scarlett Sieber. She is the chief growth and strategy officer for Money 2020 as well. And that interview will be airing next week on my other series, Taking Stock.
Trinity Chavez on the ground for us in Las Vegas for Money 2020 coverage. Trinity, thank you. We will be watching those interviews, of course, as they come in. And I'm going to turn things back here to the New York Stock Exchange. You might be able to see a bit of a crowd behind me, of course. That says we are officially underway for the trading day after Water for Elephants celebrated the opening bell. Well, another major thing happening here on the East Coast is, of course, the 2024 World Series. We saw the Yankees finally take home a win last night. The Dodgers, of course, ahead 3-1 in the series. You got to win 4 games to officially take it home. But I do want to bring in someone from Barstool Sports now, Tommy Smokes, to talk more about this series as it unfolds. Tommy, it's great to have you on the show here. And what did you make of last night's game?
Last night was great. Finally something to cheer about in this World Series. 3 brutal games for the Yankees. Last night, honestly, I think we can only thank one man that saved the season. It was that guy in right field in the first inning trying to rip the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove. Incredible moment. Gave momentum and life to the crowd. The offense came alive. So I'm starting to believe now. I know I might regret that, but I believe right now.
You believe. We like to believe here at the New York Stock Exchange as well. So much focus, of course, for Yankees fans has been on Aaron Judge. Do you think he can come through in the next game tonight?
He can. If he will is another story. He's been really bad in these playoffs. I've been vocal that I think it's okay to boo him at a certain point. We expect greatness out of the Yankees. He has not delivered in the playoffs. He had way better at-bats last night. Got a hit in that 8th inning. So if he doesn't, the series is over. But if we can get a vintage Aaron Judge performance over these next few days, then anything can happen.
It's been interesting to see just how incredible truly the pitching lineup has been for the Los Angeles Dodgers, especially early in this particular series. Do you think that momentum, Tommy, can be sustained and that could really be the clincher here in Game 5 tonight?
Yeah, I think the Yankees have momentum now. Obviously, it's hard to come back from 3-0. It's only been done against the Yankees 20 years ago, but it's almost written in the stars. 20 years exactly. Red Sox come back against the Yankees. Netflix releases their little documentary, very cute this month. And maybe 20 years later, the Yankees are able to do it. We got our ace, Garrett Cole, on the mound tonight. So if not now, then when?
Of course, I think that's a great approach as well. I know a lot of New Yorkers are going to be upset if the Yankees can't win tonight, Tommy. But for Dodgers fans, how important would it be to clinch this series for them?
It'd be incredible for them. If you go back to LA, I guess it gives them the opportunity to win at home, win in front of their fans in LA. But the longer you delay that clinching game, the more momentum builds on the other side, and I would start to get a little bit nervous if I was a Dodger fan.
Lastly, Tommy, to you, what are you going to be looking for in tonight's Game 5?
I'm going to be looking for a Garrett Cole legacy start. $324 million. Absolutely has to show up, have the start of his life. Got to throw him until his arm falls off before we turn to the bullpen. I need the bats to stay hot. Judge, Soto, Giancarlo's carried them. Got to show up tonight and deliver in a big way.
All right, Tommy Smokes of Barstool Sports. Tommy, thank you so much for joining a big storyline that we've been covering here in New York City, a coast-to-coast story as well. All right, well, as we look to round out this show, we are officially just about 25 minutes into the start of trade. I see out of the corner of my eye here on the floor of the stock exchange that it's a mixed market. Of course, stocks taking a breather of late. Many market watchers would call this a consolidation phase after what's been the best run, 6 straight weeks of gains that we had seen up until just about 10 days ago from the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, their longest weekly winning streak yet this year. Tech earnings coming out this week. Alphabet kicking things off last night, reporting a better than expected report, of course, on the back of strong cloud sales. Tonight we'll hear from Meta and Microsoft, and then on Thursday after the close from Apple and Amazon. It is one of the busiest weeks down here on Wall Street because in addition to those earnings, we also had a first read on third quarter GDP this morning. That was a little bit less than expected, actually. Growth of 2.8% on that first read. We'll get 2 more reads on the third quarter GDP growth. But that was actually below economists' expectations of growth of 3.1% and a hair below, 0.2%, in fact, below the 3% GDP growth that we saw for the U.S. economy in the second quarter. By and large, 2.8% growth is still strong. We had seen yesterday that consumers were 11% more confident, of course, and that was the strongest acceleration that we had seen on a monthly basis since early 2021, just before inflation really started gaining some serious steam. So the I word hasn't gone away. It has been coming down. Inflation, that is. Of course, it drives interest rates, and those do have an impact on the stock market. But really, it's been earnings and data this week. And I do want to note Reddit, one stock in particular. That stock, we talk about earnings. Reddit shares up double digits today, just about 25 minutes into trade, up about 35%. This is a social media company that listed its shares here on the floor of the stock exchange earlier this year. This company had a very strong earnings report, and that's why we see the stock of Reddit popping here at the open on Wednesday morning, October 30th. We'll, of course, continue to cover all of the market action. I'm going to look up there at the big board, and we are up about more than 100 points on the Dow, 0.3%. But with that, as I mentioned, we started the show noting that early voting is underway, and of course, the New York Stock Exchange and its parent company, Intercontinental Exchange, encourage you to vote. Your voice does matter this election season, whether it's via early voting or voting on actual election day. I'm going to sign off for Kristen Scholler here on the floor of the Stock Exchange, and let's take a look at the New York Stock Exchange's recent election commercial.
Together, we achieve greatness.
A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In life, I'm reminded that it's not about the destination, it is truly about the journey.
My pleasure to greet you today from the center of the U.S. capital markets here at the New York Stock Exchange.
I want to just take a minute and not just talk to the people that are in the room, but I want to speak to the rest of the team around the globe. These are people that made this happen, and I know that there is no way we would be here if it wasn't for you.
Everyone at Flutter is proud to join such a distinguished list of companies on this great stock exchange.
Not many people get to do something big in this world, and we get to do something truly special.
This is such a wonderful place to both look back and look forward. Look how far we have come. I'm so optimistic about what lies ahead. It has been a privilege to be with you.